that will be given by the Minister of Defense. Everybody else that will speak is given only 5 minutes, except those 5 people. And if you are speaking more than 5 minutes, I will clear my throat. If you do not take note of that, if I clear my throat the second time, then you'll be switched off. And I don't think you will want to have that. Now, we will leave here not a minute later than 1 o'clock. Your Eminence, agreed. You see, my first task is done. In my village, when I was growing up, we had a policeman, very tough, and they always give him a very difficult investigation to carry out. And when you go to him to beg, he was an illiterate, he never went to school. And when he wanted to show you that he's a no-nonsense man, he would say, my duty must be due. So my duty must be due. Your Eminence, my duty has been due.
And Sultanate joint account, but he said no, that one is not possible. Chairman is out of the place. Mr. President, please let me, for obvious reasons, as you can see, I'm not as tall as Monguno. Let me please stand on existing protocols. I'm going to do very quickly. I will not read my review in full, largely because time is already gone. But look, in this book, I see 3 sides of the brain of General Irabo. The first is maybe based on where he comes from. You know, all that Agbo, Ogwashuku, Asaba, Ibuzo area, it's a deeply Catholic environment. So, and one side of his brain, I suspect, has very deep Catholic content, and that comes across towards the end of the book. Then you have the military component, which speaks about the issues that are in the book. Then, of course, you have the intellectual component, which takes about 150 pages of the book, which is literally like reading the book by a professor of political science. I think that the sentiments that have been expressed, and General Monguno, like I said to you, 2 years ago, I published a book titled Nigeria's Elusive Quest for National Cohesion. And it's a collection of about 16 or 17 of convocation lectures are delivered across the length and breadth of Nigeria. What struck me, I never delivered one lecture twice, but what struck me when I was putting the papers together was that for over 10 years I'd literally been obsessed with the theme of national cohesion. So you strike the point. That's why I said I'll keep clapping until you arrive. Now this book, the first perhaps 100 and so chapters, the problem I had with the book is that it's actually only yesterday that I saw a copy of the book. General Irabo sent me the electronic copy. Unfortunately, the electronic copy, for economic reasons, because I'm a priest, I didn't want to waste too much of my money. So I reduced the type font. And that meant the pages were also severely reviewed. So in my review, my pages are not the same with the pagination in the book. Last night, I tried to review my review up till about midnight, and then I thought, should I go and start looking at the pages? It got too tedious, so I stopped. Anyway, this book is 285 pages. And President Obasanjo has already made the point on page 4 in italics when he said, I am hopeful that this contribution to the body of knowledge will serve as a value addition to the process of peace, security, and development of Nigeria. Everything else in the book is literally a detail. Now, the book has 14 chapters, and the 14 chapters are divided into 3 sections. The first section is titled The Ghost That Lives in Us. And then the second part is the Boko Haram conundrum. And the third part is titled I Set on Tomorrow, which for me is perhaps the most important part of the book. Because not only is it futuristic, it admits the broken dreams of Nigeria. It admits all the mistakes that have been made, but tries to point at a picture. And when you read the book, you will see that General Rabo is not talking now with military arrogance about what the military has done, but he talks about the issues, the soft issues that we need to become a more humane society. Because I think he admits also in the book that Boko Haram, and I think is a philosophical question, but it's also an intellectual question we can debate. Namely, is Boko Haram a cause or is it an effect? Is it a reaction to the brokenness, for the broken dreams, to all the convoluted environment that has been created in Nigeria in the last 60 years? How did we dredge up this group of human beings? They didn't come from another planet. They are our children, our grandchildren, and so on and so forth. So the author goes through all of this, and then I think he opens the book by telling a story. And I think what I felt when I read the book was, I thought, before I even started reading the book, that this will be a book about strategy, about plan, about all the gara-gara, all the shooting, all the plotting, but it's a completely different book that you can read very comfortably on a chair. But the first thing that struck me was when the general said he decided to visit his troops. And thank God that General Rabo is, as you can see him, slim, athletic, obviously not a very heavy man. Because when he got to his soldiers, it was very easy for them. They lifted him up with excitement. I mean, this broke military protocol. But I think just to tell you, this is the chief of general staff. He arrives and these soldiers are so excited to see him that they lifted him up. And he said, and I quote, "The soldiers seized and carried me high as if I had injected them with doses of oxytocin." I don't know what that is. That could make them pursue Boko Haram with bare hands. And then shortly after that, he encounters the soldiers. And then he looks around. And then he poses a more complicated question, because not a solution. Because he's asking himself, again he says, how did we get here? What has gone wrong? Who will tell the political class of the despicable conditions of our forces? What remedies exist? Will this ever end? This is on page 4 of the book. And then right there, he admitted that the foundations upon which independent Nigeria was created as a political entity failed the test of national unity and cohesion. Page 23. The psalmist in the book of Psalms, Psalm 11, verse 3 says, "Foundations once destroyed, what can the righteous do?" So the very fact that Nigeria continues to go one step forward, 3 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 3 steps backwards, and we are unable to resolve the issues that we started out with, suggests, and that is answered in chapter 2. When the general now says, the title is "When the Shield Becomes the Sword." Quite a contradiction. How can a shield that is meant to protect you become the sword? And he says, in talking about Nigeria's fractured history, talking about the military coup, he says, and I quote, "The author admits that the 1966 coup is a very sensitive issue because it has created myths, rumors, conspiracy theories around the origins and the plot of its victims. The coup, which was intended as a shield against post-independence political leadership failures, became the sword of chaos." So if you're looking for what is wrong in Nigeria and why Nigeria is still not working today, January 1966 is the scene of the crime. And for policemen, intelligence people who are involved in crime scene investigation, when you contaminate a crime scene, you lose evidence. Nigeria has refused, one, to return to the crime scene. And even when they've returned to the crime scene, they've become hesitant. And I think this is the point that our brother, the former NSA, has made. Now, the author goes on to talk about the Boko Haram conundrum. Now, the good thing about the book is that it doesn't discuss the theology of Boko Haram, which is a subject for another day. But he makes the point, even if it is in passing, about the circumstances, social, economic, political, that brought about this. And I will speak to it towards the end of my presentation. But please, let us not forget, in all this conversation about Boko Haram, and I think this is where the Nigerian government has gotten it wrong. First of all, let's not forget, we are the ones who gave them the name Boko Haram. They didn't say that they are Boko Haram. We are the ones who gave them the name. And because we gave them the name Boko Haram, we have become comfortable. It has affected our strategy. And that is why we're focusing on, they say the no-like book, that the education, Western education is, but if you go back, and I've done a little bit of research on Boko Haram for quite some time. My brother and the director of the Kuka Center, Father Barkindo, here, his PhD thesis at the prestigious School of Oriental and African Studies was on Boko Haram. They've done extensive translations of the kind of things that Boko Haram was talking about. And until you access the kind of thing Boko Haram was talking about, you are shooting at the wrong board. Because the question which the chairman raised as to how 15 years later we are unable to resolve this issue means that you cannot cast out a devil that you have not named. Boko Haram says their name is Jama'atu Ali Sunnah Leader Awati Wal Jihad. That is their name. If you can't pronounce it, too bad. Because if you call me John, I won't answer. If you call me Philip, I won't answer. Even if I commit a crime and you took me to court and you try me and you secure a conviction and you spell my name Matthew with one T, I can argue that this is not my Matthew. So we are calling them Boko Haram, but they have told you this is their name. And the English translation is that people committed to the prophet's teachings for the propagation of jihad. That's what is in their blood. So no matter how many bullets you shoot them with, and I will come to that point, they have told you this is what they are committed to. And in fairness to all of us, including those of us who are in this room, is there any Muslim who will say is not committed to the teachings of the Holy Prophet? The challenge is what context of preaching. Now, the author talks about the irony of Boko Haram. That is in chapter 6. And he addresses a lot of issues in chapter 6 and chapter 7, which also catalog the forces that led to the destruction, the Federal Government College in Buniyadi, the kidnappings in Chibok, Dapchi, the destruction of infrastructure such as the UN building in Abuja, assassinations of people like Jafar Adam in Kano, and so on. Now, the issue of Leah Sharibu and the Chibok girls, these are what the author refers to as the scars. And in my view, as long as Leah Sharibu is unaccounted for, as long as any of the abducted children in Nigeria is unaccounted for, every child that is unaccounted for is a scar on the face of Nigeria. So the point that the author makes, and I think that one of the mistakes, when this whole thing started, I published an article, I think it was in The Guardian, and the title of my article was Bread, Not Bullets. And I was trying to make a point, to point out to the government of Nigeria that these issues require they don't require bullets. But from day one, fighting Boko Haram became a military operation. And because it was a military operation, fighting an idea, we have had problems with identifying the nature of the forces. And what is very interesting for me, I've not read military doctrine. But military doctrine is part of the propaganda machinery of the military. General Agwe is here, so I will not go too far on that regard. But you listen to the Nigerian military, they've had Operation Lafi Adole, that is Lafia Dole, that is when by force. Okay? How can you make Lafia by force? But we have Operation Lafia Dole, Operation Flush, Operation Restore Order, Operation Hadankai, Operation Zaman Lafia, Operation Rawankada, Operation Amli Fakad, Operation Yanchin Tafki, Operation Sharam Fege, Operation Lake Sanity, and so on and so forth. One operation fails, the late Patrick Itiwe of blessed memory. So when he came to, when the Northern Regional Government decided to bring all these Indians and Pakistanis after the Civil War. So many of them came. Some of them were hospital attendants, but they came to Nigeria as medical doctors. So Patrick Itiwe, because for Nigeria, if you see skin color, many of us, if you go to hospital now, many of my friends who have gone to London, they go to what's it called, the name of that street in London? Harley Street, Abi? How do you know? Okay, so you go to Harley Street, and then you now go to, the first time I took somebody to Harley Street. So when we got there, I looked at the name on the board, and the name was Mr. So and so. So I told him, I said, you travel all the way from Nigeria. Look at the man you have come to see. An ordinary, he's not even a doctor, he's Mr. I see, yeah, boy is laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. I didn't know that with doctors, when you get to a particular point, you drop doctor and come down to Mr. But when you go there and you open the door and you see a Nigerian, first of all, there is one kind that you feel. But if you see an Indian, you feel better. If you see a white man, you feel more confident. Now, the question then is, if all this operation did not succeed, what happened? But I imagine, and I'm not going into that detail, but just saying, because we're dealing with textual evidence. If Operation Dole didn't succeed, why did we think Operation Hadankai will succeed? If it didn't succeed, why? These are questions. But once we turned Boko Haram into a military operation, it meant that you foreclosed the possibility of other sources of information. And what is more, for me, if you didn't understand, if Boko Haram is fighting a jihad, you are saying Lafi Adole, Boko Haram is saying Mutu Adole. That's the reality. You are fighting, hoping to go back home. Boko Haram people are fighting a jihad, and they have been told the number of virgins that are waiting for them in paradise. So they are waiting to die. There is a collision, and for me, as I said, part of this conversation must include an intellectual, and I don't want to improve on what President Obasanjo has said and what my brother has said. There now needs to be a very serious intellectual engagement away from military hardware to begin to deal with the soft issues of life and death. Go to chapters 11, 12, and 13, where the author talks about what he calls eyes set on tomorrow. And this is where when you read this section, that's why I say there is an aspect of it reads like the writings of a priest. Because it's not, you're not reading what a soldier is saying, but you're reading what a human being is. Because now, with experience, and with all the threats and all the scars, the author is now coming back to say, listen, there is another way. There's another way for us to be in peace. He deals with issues of security, national reconciliation, political orientation, patriotism, judicial reforms, structural reforms, good governance, are recommendations that the author makes if we are to reverse the ugly trends that Boko Haram has inflicted on us. But one of the things that you take away from this book, and I'll try to just make 3 or 4 points. One of the things you take away from this book is the urgency of what is called soft power. Professor Nye is dead now. He was the president of the Kennedy School when I was a student. He came up with this idea. You know, the military are talking about asymmetrical warfare and so on, but he was the one who developed that notion. But then later on he realized that it's not, American guns cannot bring peace. So he came up with a concept that is called soft power. That is that, isn't it better to take on the human issues? And it's almost akin to a book written by, what's his name again? It's about globalization. And the guy makes a point about the ambassador of Israel. No, the American ambassador. When McDonald's opened an office in Tel Aviv. So they went for the ceremony. And then the American ambassador spoke eloquently about what McDonald's is all about. So when he finished, this little girl went to him, said, please, ambassador, can I get an autograph? And the man took the paper, was very excited. The ambassador took the paper, wrote his name, Ambassador of the United States of America, and gave to the girl. The girl looked at it and threw it back at him. He said, I told you we were ambassador for McDonald's. You know, what am I doing with Ambassador of America? The idea of soft power, is the things are largely intangible. I visited South Africa, for example, and then I was invited to dinner by the late Archbishop of Cape Town. While we were here, he told me, so Islamism threatens to destroy the foundations of Islam as a sacred religion. And we must collectively insist, because this is where Boko Haram started from. And this is why the danger, northern politicians, please remember, okay, Metasile, what happened in 1982? The relationship between Abubakar Rimi and Muhammadu, who became Metasile. Again, we give these names. The man's name was Muhammadu Marwa. But Nigerians call him Metasine, whereas the man's name is not Metasine. The only thing was that Sine in Hausa means to curse. And because the man was always saying, if you are not doing God, curse on you. People started calling the one who is always cursing people. They say Metasine, that is the guy who is always cursing people. In the vocabulary, in the literature today, that is the name by which he is called. But it was a result of the breakdown of his relationship that began the process of Metasine and the violence it brought. Secondly, what is now Boko Haram? Let's not forget the killing of Muhammad Yusuf, who was a friend of the governor, and the relationship broke down. The point I'm making here is that we religious leaders and the political actors must also come to terms with the fact that there are boundaries, and if these boundaries are not respected, you can pay the imam, you can pay the marabut, you can pay the bishop, you can pay whatever money you want to. Good governance is not about how much we are dispensing. Finally, the Egyptians dealt with Islamism when it reared its ugly head. The people of Algeria in 1993 dealt with Islamism when it raised its ugly head. There are so many of us, there are Boko Haram sympathizers, they are not immediately available to us. But we know that there are people with fat bank accounts who are funding them. Maybe there was a time it didn't matter. And I'm happy again, the former NSA made the point. We've come to a point in which we should be at the point in which injury to one is injury to all. But right now it's possible, if they say, oh, they burnt a mosque in Ibadan. Oh, please, okay, Arsenal, yeah, I'm watching a football match. They said they killed 20 Muslims in Ibadan. But if they tell you they killed 20 Christians, you are a Muslim, oh, too bad. So we must walk towards a point, because Islamism still poses a serious danger. Finally, during his inauguration, and please, may I make a request, sir, with due respect, can we please stand up for just 2 seconds, please? Can we please all stand up? All right, please sit down. May the soul of President Buhari and the souls of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. And please sit down. I say so because he was the one who appointed General Irabo. So without him, General Irabo may not have written this book and will not be here. But on May 29, 2015, President Buhari, in his famous "I belong to everybody, I belong to nobody" speech, said that, quote, and I quote, "Boko Haram is a typical example of small fires causing big fires. An eccentric and unorthodox preacher and a tiny following by his extrajudicial killing." That is the killing of Yusuf, the beginning of the crime. 10 years later, the embers of Boko Haram fires have not gone out yet. And Nigeria must still answer the question as to how a gallant military that fought a civil war in 30 months He routed the rebels in Liberia and Sierra Leone in record time. Yet, over 15 years later, we are unable to put out the fires, the small fires. There is death of passion in the Nigerian military, and General Rabo deserves our commendation for opening up what I hope can become a major phase in mapping out how to rescue our country from the clutches of the devil. I owe, and all of us owe him, a debt of gratitude. But whether we resolve these scars by plastic surgery, or whether we can, like a Nigerian musician, Olumide, called Seal, who is famous not for his being handsome, but the kind of scars. If you see his face, you think it's an elephant, a leopard, tear his face. But he has turned his scars into something beautiful. So these scars, whether we resolve them by plastic surgery, I don't know. But I thank you, General, for the invitation. God bless you.
And even inexorable in our nasty attitude towards one another, without us being able to address this very factor, and I'm not cursing this country, to see the promised land will be a very, very big problem for us. Therefore, it is up to not just government, but people within the society to have a rethink about this Cain and Abel situation in which we've found ourselves. The chairman has given us a notice not to overflog the issue. But if there's one thing that might help all of us, is that nations have been able to overcome this problem. Obviously, you cannot legislate love and you cannot enforce affection. It is something that has to come from within the soul. If other countries have been able to do that, and Rwanda is a perfect example, I see absolutely no reason why we can't do this, why we can't get this monster, this great big monkey off our collective backs. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will not go through a lengthy protocol because of the time, but there are some few people that we need to recognize. Let me sincerely appreciate our president being represented by the Minister of Defense. Let me appreciate the chairman of this occasion, our daddy, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. Let me also appreciate the person who brought us here and the wife, General Irabo. Thank you for gathering us to celebrate this book. The keynote speaker, let us appreciate the former NSA. We're happy. And let us appreciate the book reviewer, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka. Whenever Kuka is to speak, I'm always pleased because it's more of a scholar than a bishop. I have to thank all of you who are here, serving ministers, former ministers, serving governors, deputy governors, and former governors, serving members of the National Assembly and former members of the National Assembly. But let me really appreciate our traditional institutions led by the Sultan of Sokoto and other traditional rulers are here with us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will not take much of your time because we've listened to eloquent speakers. We've listened to the chairman, we've listened to the book reviewer, we've listened to the former NSA. So I don't really have much to add. But let me first appreciate the man, Irabo, General Irabo. Is really, really a fine officer. and is somebody who, the little I know, doesn't play politics with military. After leaving office, when I was in office, I thought that the military services don't play unnecessary politics. Well, we know there is politics everywhere, but they play the politics of within the army, not the kind of politics we play. But after leaving office, I realized that quite a number of professionals in the security services play dirty politics. But General Rabo is one person that does not get into that. White is white, black is black. Thank you, you're a gift to this country. And the title of the book is quite interesting. Scars and the Boko Haram conundrum. It is interesting because, when I was in office, and one of the major scars on my government, and would be on my face, and like Bishop Cook has said, no plastic or cosmetic surgeon can remove it, is the issue of the Chibok girls. It's a scar that I will die with. But later on, people may know a little more details. And that's also to do with the Boko Haram. What do they really want? Of course, our chairman raised the issue when interviewed some of them, and they gave him some perspective. But probably one day, I pray that some of the Boko Haram leaders may be literate enough to document what they have done, so that people will really know what they wanted. Because it's like the story of the Nigerian Civil War. If you read one of the books, My Command, I think it's one of the first books that came out from President Obasanjo, because he was there. Then Ojukwu wrote his own, Because I Am Involved. So when those who were involved in something say it, you get a different perspective. If you go through a research, interview a lot of people, yes, you'll get part of the story, but you will never get the full story of the Boko Haram. Because I was there. The Boko Haram started 2009 when I was the vice president to late Yaradua. Of course, I took over 2010 for 5 years, battling with the Boko Haram until I left. I thought that immediately I leave, within a reasonable time, late General Buhari was going to wipe them out, but till today, the Boko Haram is still there. So the issue of Boko Haram is a little more complex than sometimes we can conjecture. In 1999, when Obasanjo just became a president, we had some issues in the Southwest. But government was able to bring it down because there was a clear focus, there was clear reason, and government was able to. Then we had issues in the Niger Delta. And when I became the vice president, one of the major things I did was to visit the most dangerous camp of the militants in the Niger Delta. I remember when we flew down to Warri, by the time we got to the waterfront to take boats to that camp, they sent information to us that anybody following me must not carry a weapon. My ADC, my CSO, that nobody should carry a weapon. In fact, the Commissioner of Police of Delta State said, Vice President, no, you will not go there. The State Director of SSS to say, no, I will not go. I told them I will go. So even my officers, my ADC, my CSO, and so on, they handed over their guns to the CP and the SDS of Delta State, and none of them carried a weapon. When we landed at the camp, these boys lining up one this way, one road this way, with their assault rifles, just facing the bush, not even looking at my direction as if there was nothing happening. We passed through them, We had a meeting with their leaders and so on. We had spent almost 1 hour there. when we came back, that was the beginning of solving the the Niger Delta crisis. And we're able to get through. At least now, there's reasonable pace in the Niger Delta. If you, like Bishop mentioned the 82 and 83, when we have the Maitasinde religious crisis in this country. From research, the Maitasinde religious crisis, when some of them were arrested and analyzed and interviewed, they came from parts of the Sahel area within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, where we had major drought within that period, and the river pest disease that wiped out so many cattle, and so many young people from these areas migrated to the cities, Maiduguri and others, and they had no skills and nothing to do, and they were able to be recruited and cause havoc. Luckily, it was a military government then, so when the military intervened, they were able to bring it down because there was a clear reason. A reason of young people who were looking for survival, but they had no skills, and so on and so forth. So if you put all these things together, you begin to say, this Boko Haram, why is it that from 2009 till date, we've not been able to resolve the crisis of Boko Haram? So just like Bishop Kuka tried to raise some fundamental issues. Yes, we need to approach it differently. The issue of carrots and the stick may be adopted. And yes, probably they need something, but if you look at the weapons they use and you value the weapons, then you know that these are not hungry people. So the soldiers that sometimes capture some of the weapons will see better. But the weapons they use, the ammunitions they use, sometimes they even have more ammunitions than our soldiers. So it doesn't show that they're hungry people. And where are these guns, sophisticated weapons coming from? And you begin to see that the external hands are also involved, especially when I was a president. So it's a bit complex. And it's not a matter of a single story. But I believe as a nation, we have to look at the concept of Boko Haram and approach it differently from the conventional. I always appreciate people who clearly document events so that maybe sometimes when we write our own, we'll borrow from the petition. And I believe that all the military officers who were involved in this Boko Haram saga should be able to give us information about what the Boko Haram stood for. If it is only about hunger, because we tried different options, I don't need to give a sermon. It will look as if I am trying to defend my own government. That will come up later when we will document, we'll write our books. But I believe we took different options, set different committees. We tried our best within that 5 years that I was there. I believe late Buhari too must have tried his best because one of the committees we set up then, the Boko Haram nominated Buhari to lead their team to negotiate with government. So I was feeling that, if they nominated Buhari to represent them and have a discussions with the government committee, then when Buhari took over, it could have been an easy way to negotiate with them and they would have handed over their guns, but it was still there till today. I believe the government, luckily the defense minister is here. The service chiefs all are represented here. I think we will need a slightly different approach, and God willing, we will be able to resolve this crisis. I thank you all.
Sallallahu ala Nabi al-Karim. I recognize the President, very ably represented by the Minister of Defense, the Chief Celebrant, whom we are all here for, and his very strong, able wife, his best part, I won't say better part, his best part. The two musketeers, two presidents, one head of state, then president, one president for 5 years, one a title holder of Sokoto, and the chairman of this occasion. You are shaking your head. I recognize the book reviewer and all serving retired top military, paramilitary officers here, ably led by the Chief of Defense Staff, our Sokoto boy, General Chris Musa. I greet you in the best form of greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't know how many minutes I'm given because it's not stated, but even when the chairman said we should take only 5 minutes, he did not include me because he cannot give what he doesn't have. And I will take my time because this is a very, very important program in this country and in the military. And I would like to thank all of you who turned up because the attendance here really showed how serious we are in overcoming the insecurity problem in this country by honoring General Irabo's book and being here. I've seen so many service chiefs retired. I've seen IGs. I've seen so many other people that I know honoring the invitation of Lucky. Lucky, you are very lucky that you can bring this crowd to a book launch that is so important to us. For some of us who have been in the military and are still in the military, we know the importance of your book. And when you called me and then sent me the letter, I did not hesitate to accept to be part of this program because of its importance. The 5 minutes given to me by the chairman of the occasion, I will add the minutes taken by the two masters of ceremony. After each speaker has spoken, they will take about 5 more minutes to speak. So plus all the minutes Eugenia and Henry took, I will add those minutes to my own. I would like to thank the book reviewer whom we were together just some couple of days back in Sokoto with General Obasanjo at a very important program. And I would like to also try to, I'm not going to say anything about insecurity or the way to end insecurity or whatever it is. No. I want to adopt all what's been said from the beginning of this program, because these are the ways and means of resolving such issues. But what President Jonathan said, I was expecting him to make a very strong comment about how he really dealt with the issue of Boko Haram, which he used both the military and myself and other stakeholders. But maybe he decided not to because a book is coming after that from him on how I dealt with Boko Haram issue. And let me also correct you, like I'm happy to hear that the Boko Haram is not really Boko Haram, that's not their name. I'm glad to hear that from somebody who is not me. If I were the one who is saying that, somebody would say yes, because I know them. And that's not their name, because I know that they never claimed Boko is haram. If you have listened to some of their audio, which I had privilege of listening to, they said they didn't say Boko is haram, because so many of them have also gone to school, and they said you cannot open somebody's brain and remove the education in his head. So he has already acquired that knowledge, that education. He's an engineer, he's a doctor, he's whatever it is. What they are saying is that those who have gone to school and are educated are leading bad governments. What they're after is the issue of bad governance, because they want to be free, they want to do whatever they feel they should do. And I want to correct, and I'm glad this is carried on TV, live. I want to correct this wrong notion that people, non-Muslims, hold about jihad. Jihad is not to kill a non-Muslim by a Muslim. Jihad means to strive. And in whatever you do in life, you strive to be the best you can be. You strive to be a good Muslim. You strive to be a good Christian. You strive to be a good farmer or a good engineer. So jihad is not to kill a non-Muslim. That's a wrong notion people have been airing out for decades. And I wrote a foreword on a book written by very high stakeholders across the world, published by the King of Jordan. And I wrote that forward, and I believe that book will be brought back again, because it was about 13, 14 years ago, and it talked about the uses and abuses of jihad. Because at the back of the book, I remember very well, because they said one of the most fearsome word a non-Muslim would hear is the word jihad. And it's true, because people have already given it a very negative connotation, but it is not. And so let's live here with that notion that, look, jihad is to strive, it's not to kill a non-Muslim. Because as we know as Muslims, it's in the Holy Quran, you cannot take somebody's life without due process. You cannot kill somebody. Because they said to kill a life, take a life or kill somebody, it's like taking the whole of humanity. That's without being following due process. But these are things that scholars will talk to you about. So let's live here with this notion that jihad is not to kill, because we are living peacefully with one another. I'm a Muslim and I know I'm a Muslim. If you're a Christian, you know you're a Christian. Then when we understand one another, we are better equipped to deal with one another. Because I know who you are, you know who I am. There's nothing you can do to me. There's something I can do to you. Understanding is the most important thing. We understand one another and live peacefully in this country. And I want to also correct the notion that when Bishop Coker talked about Islamism, if you use some words maybe in a wrong manner, or somebody might feel Islam is negative. Islamism is not it's not aimed at seizing power at any particular forum. Islam is after good governance in society. And whoever is there, President Goodluck Jonathan was president, we gave him 100% support throughout his presidency. Nobody said anything negative about it. He knows that and he's here. So Islamism is not what you think it is. It's a wrong notion that you are bringing up here that is to seize power. It's not to seize power. We're after good governance. September 2019, I gave a talk on Islam and good governance in Nigeria. President Buhari was just going in for his second term. After I finished my talk, the following day, papers carried it, I was aiming at President Buhari's second term, because I said things that a good Muslim should do as a leader, and what he should not do. And these are written. So we have a code. We have a code of conduct. We have ways and means of life, the Holy Quran and the hadith of our most noble Prophet Muhammad and the consensus of the ulama, that's the clerics. These are three things guiding us. Anybody coming outside this to say things that he really doesn't know about is not speaking, it's not for Islam. Because Islam abhors extremism. Islam abhors extremism. You cannot be an extremist and then claim to be a good Muslim. So let's learn some of these issues, and then when we're talking about insecurity or security in our great country, we have to be careful in how we say things, how we present them. And another particular paper I'm talking about, I gave Bishop Kuka a copy, Islam, what Islam means in good governance. So let's come closer as one big family with different backgrounds and forge ahead to make this country a better country. Because there's nothing anybody can do about a Christian or a Muslim being who he is. Because when we are coming to the world, we didn't beg Almighty Allah to bring us into the world as Muslims or Christians or Jews or whatever it is. He decided in his own right to bring you into the world as a Christian or a Muslim or whatever it is. We must learn to respect one another. We must learn to live with one another. We must learn to help one another, because we must be our brothers' keepers. And so many Christian leaders here know that. It's in the holy books also that we must be good to ourselves. And I want to thank the chairman of the occasion for coming to Sokoto once more. And I assure you all, we are here to do our best.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Asiwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, here ably represented by the Honorable Minister of Defense. We are delighted to have you, Your Excellency. I would thank you for coming. Our father, mentor, I want to thank you for accepting to be the chairman with the entreaties. I recall that morning when you called me after sending a message. As you asked me, sorry to wake you up. I said, Your Excellency, I'm awake. Actually, I was not awake. But when I heard your voice, I had to wake up. Thank you so very much for indeed not only offering the forward, but also being the chairman of this occasion. And for our guest of honor, the former president, I would like to also thank you. Our royal fathers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I know that our time is fast spent, and I thought that it's necessary for me to join my wife to also welcome you again to the launch of this book, Scars, Nigeria's Journey, and the Boko Haram Conundrum. No doubt, as the MC said, today is a milestone in my journey as an author. I never knew that this is the life of an author. I think, in fact, from the experience I now have, I have utmost respect for anyone who has put his pen on paper to author a book. Congratulations. This book is a product of years of reflection on my experiences as a military officer, engaged in addressing the Boko Haram insurgency as already indicated. In writing it, I sought to investigate the phenomenon, to examine its roots and complexities, and to contribute my own way to finding lasting solutions to this national crisis. Let me pause to express my gratitude once again To all those who stood by me throughout the journey, my family, friends, and colleagues, all your encouragement and unwavering support have sustained me. In this audience, I cite my godfather in NDA, Major General Wiwa. Kede Wiwa go wrong? Then Kede Wiwa will say, Kede Rabo go and hunch. And right in this audience, I also cited my roommate who brought me up, who taught me how to hunch, who left. Then Cadet A.S. Garba, who left as squadron leader A.S. Garba. I'd like to thank you for those beautiful times that we shared right in India up until now. God bless you all. Let me equally thank the publisher and the entire production team for the professionalism and commitment that have transformed this vision into reality. The special guest of honor, sir, as well as chairman, the guest of honor, our royal fathers, everyone, I'd like to thank you for what indeed value that you have brought into my life and indeed in this work. God bless you all. Now, this moment, I must say, holds very special meaning to me. Earlier on, and by the way, thank you, CDS, for wishing me a happy 60th birthday, because in 2 days' time, by the special grace of God, I will mark my 60th birthday. And I cannot think of a more fitting gift to myself than this lunch. And for the eminent personalities that have come to honor this invitation, I'm truly, truly grateful. On behalf of my family and I'd like to thank you. Now, the account in this book is a painful truth as I see it. It is my hope that it will elicit a national conversation which is aimed at focusing attention on credible solutions to the nation's challenges. As we unveil this book, I invite you to join me on a journey of reflection, empathy, and hope. I have always believed that man exists to solve problems. If you are not solving any problem, then your existence is worthless. Therefore, let us remember the victims of Boko Haram's atrocities. And let us also note that SCARS, the journey, Nigeria's journey and Boko Haram conundrum, is not an indictment. Take it from me, it's not an indictment. It is a national soul-searching presentation. It is an awakening reality to either act dutifully for progress or do nothing and tend towards extinction. May that not be our portion. Hence, let us recommit ourselves to building a nation anchored on justice, equity, and peace. For me, this book is not just a narrative. It is a call for sustained hope and optimism. In the words of Nelson Mandela, I do not lose. I either win or I learn. Therefore, our national experiences should be seen as wins and lessons. Let me add that the proceeds from this book will be used to sustain support to schools and hospitals, which my family and I have been committed to over the years. Once again, thank you for being here. As I assure you that SCARS is quite optimistic that collectively we can turn our SCARS into victories of national, sprawling nationhood. Once again, thank you and God bless.
That applause is not strong enough for this. As our author takes his handshakes and commendations, I would like to quickly salute the patience of the representative of Mr. President, the Honorable Minister of Defense. We want to thank you so much, sir, for being so patient and be here with us. At this point, we would very now quickly want to unveil this book and then proceed perhaps with a very, very light launch.
The Sultan, Etsenufe, the reviewer of the book, governors and former governors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm standing on behalf of Mr. President. Therefore, anytime I say I, it's not me, it refers to Mr. President. So it gives me great honor to be part of today's ceremony to celebrate one of our nation's finest. I'm represented by the Honorable Minister of Defense, not as a stand-in, but as a mark of this administration's deep respect for service and sacrifice. We honor those who shaped our history and continue to guide our future with wisdom. Distinguished guests, our esteemed author, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to stand before you today to honor a quintessential general on his 60th birthday and unveiling of a timely and thought-provoking book that tackles one of the most pressing challenges facing our nation. Insecurity, which he aptly authored. As we gathered to celebrate the publication of this significant work, we do so with understanding that the issues at hand are complex, multifaceted, and demand our collective attention and action. The book we'll unveil today is more than just a literary compilation, but a call for reflection, a source of insight, and potential catalyst for change. Through its pages, we are invited to explore the root causes of insecurity, to examine the manifestation, and to consider the pathway to a safer, more united and resilient Nigeria. General Rabo's life and career embody the essence of service. From his early days in the Signal Corps to his advanced training at the Obafemi Awolowo University and Harvard, he blended knowledge with action. He has demonstrated that leadership in war is not solely about firepower, but also about intellect, vision, and resolve. His time at the heart of our counterinsurgency effort was epochal. As the theater commander of Operation Lapia Dole, he confronted an existential threat to our national identity with the desired determination and pragmatism. It was under his command that the armed forces achieved the historic clearance of the dreaded Sambisa forest, which demonstrated an unyielding national resolve. Later, as a commander of multinational joint task force, he mastered the complex art of coalition warfare, harmonizing 4 national armies to secure the Lake Chad region. This success was a practical prelude to his appointment at the 17th Chief of Defense Staff, where he cemented synergy as a non-negotiable operational doctrine for all our services. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, General Rabo's book, Scars, Nigeria's Journey and the Boko Haram Conundrum, is not only history, it provides guidance for the present and serves as a roadmap for the future. A scar tells a story. It reminds us of pain, but it also proves that survival is possible. Therefore, the scars we carried as a nation are evidence of our resilience. They remind us of the sacrifice of our heroes first, soldiers, displaced families, and communities, sacred but unbroken. This book indeed challenges us to learn from those experiences and to build a safer and stable tomorrow. My administration is committed to that tomorrow. Under the Renewed Hope agenda, we are determined to transform Nigeria into a nation of peace, opportunity, and unity. Security is at the heart of this vision. We are modernizing our armed forces with modern platforms and relevant technology. We are also streamlining intelligence gathering capability and deepening regional partnership to boost collective security. We are investing in a whole of a society approach to security so that peace is not only won on the battlefield, but sustained in daily life with participation of the citizens. Let all Nigerians be aware that we will not rest until we defeat all indices of insecurity. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the author for his dedication, research, and commitment to shed a light on this critical issue. The work is a testament to the power of ideas and the importance of practical and intellectual engagement in addressing the challenges of our time. Let us use this occasion not only to acknowledge the book, but also to reaffirm our commitment to working together toward a future where every Nigerian can live without fear, thrive in peace, and contribute to the nation's greatness. General Irabo's work is a reminder that every scar is both a warning and a lesson that teaches us never to forget the cost of peace and never to abandon its pursuit. At this juncture, I wish to bid General Irabo happy 60th birthday. To your dear wife and family, I extend the nation's gratitude. Madam, your sacrifices have been the quiet strength behind his hard service, and therefore part of Nigerian strength. I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Defense. As he stands, sir, may I ask you to